All right, thank you so much, everyone. Sorry for the little bit of a delay. We've had some audio visual issues, but we got it going, and that's what's most important, right? So firstly, let me recognize, I want to just talk a little bit about the ad hoc, why we formed the ad hoc and what we're trying to do with it, and then talk a little bit about what, we're going to go through with the slides tonight in particular. Firstly, let's just go with why we formed the ad hoc first. So, I can say for myself, I always try very hard not to speak for other counselors, but for myself, as we went through the budget process this year and we were developing the CIP in particular around the water projects, I just felt very just a little out of the loop in terms of how the prioritizations of the projects work. And I'm someone, because I sit on the Resiliency Committee, I'm someone that's actually been very close to the water projects for a couple of years now. And so, certainly if I felt a little like I didn't have all the information I really needed to understand as it pertains to all the various projects and how the city is looking at the prioritization of those projects, it certainly occurred to me that a lot of other people, most importantly residents, may not be there, as well as counselors. As we talked through that budget process, it seemed like more questions than answers. And so, I certainly felt that a formation of an ad hoc would really help us get there. So just 2 seconds on what an ad hoc is. So an ad hoc is a committee of the city council that is not one of the committees that are formed by the charter. So you think of the committees as things like budget and finance, planning and development, public safety and public works and safety. I knew there was a W in there for a reason. So those are the committees that we all sit on that are formed by the charter and happen with every council. An ad hoc is formed by the council president, Councilor Cameron, as a separate committee where we try to tackle a particular issue. So that's what the ad hoc in particular is. So this is really an attempt to dive deeper into the information around the various water projects that are in the pipeline, so that both counselors and the public can be more informed. And then the output of this ad hoc committee, and the committee would end when the ad hoc committee does its final report, but the output of it is the recommendation from the counselors as to what we feel that the prioritization of the projects are. However, it's very, very clear to understand that we can make those recommendations. The administration drives the city and drives how things are moved through. So where the council has the power is around the ability to say yes or no to the budget for projects, but we can't initiate projects. So again, the administration, whoever that may be in the new year, will still drive the city and drive how the projects move forward. But this is a way for us to have input into that process. And on the ad hoc committee, there are 5 counselors. Those counselors are Councilor Khan, who's at large, Councilor Cameron, who's also at large, myself as the chair, Connie Preston, also at large, as well as Jenny Donahue, who should be joining us soon, who I think that's her, who is the Ward 2 counselor, and Councilor Jim McCauley, who is the Ward 5 counselor. He will be joining. He went to the meeting downstairs. He's going to come in a little while. Some other people that sit on the ad hoc, but there are not, so only counselors by charter can be voting members of the council, the ad hoc committee. However, the other people that we are looking to join us regularly for these meetings, so that we can get input from those people, are our newest water superintendent, Pete King, city engineer, John Eric White. These 2 will really be doing the meat of the presentation tonight, as well as, if you can put your hands up out there in the crowd, Andy Port, who is the Director of Planning and Development, and Turner, who is the Special Projects Manager. So that's all the staff. From the various boards and commissions around the city, we have Jane Healy from the Resiliency Committee, Joe Teixeira from the COMCOM, Mark Spencer, who is on the Water Sewer Commission but was unable to join us tonight. So he is represented by Dan Simons, who is the chair of the Water Sewer Commission. And I also just really want to point out that We've invited tonight Angus Jennings, who is the town manager for, put your hand up please, for West Newbury, because hopefully you will leave with an appreciation of the fact that we can do almost none of this without West Newbury. And so, that will really drive to the need for an intermunicipal agreement with West Newbury. So I am gonna stop talking really shortly. I just wanna say about the presentation tonight, there's really nothing new in here. This is all information that was parts of the CIP, that are parts of various reports that have been done with the water projects over the city, from a number of different vendors and specialty firms. But the idea tonight is to just level set for us as counselors and you as the public to really gain an understanding of the entirety of the system and what needs to be done within the system. From here, we will have a series of ad hoc meetings, and I really hope that all of you will continue to attend or at least watch the recordings of those meetings, because from here, we're gonna take this information that we're getting and really try to distill it down and create prioritization of the various projects across the city, okay? All right, so having said that, I already covered this. So these are the various members of the ad hoc. And these are the various projects that we are going to be discussing tonight. They are all, with the exception of the two at the bottom. So on the right-hand column, you'll see where they're funded, not funded, or dropped off of the CIP. But so the various projects that are on the CIP and what the record numbers are, if you want to follow along on the city website under the finance department in budget document center is where you will find the CIP. The two projects that are not currently funded in the CIP, because the CIP is a 5-year window. So the two projects that fall outside of that 5-year window are the Lower Chuck Dam improvements, as well as the Indian Hill raw water line. You'll get a further description as to what part that phase is. The two things that have been previously on the CIP but dropped off the CIP entirely with this fiscal year are the Amesbury Interconnect, and the dredging of the upper and lower artichokes, which again, you'll get a description on what those mean. All right, so Janiyar.
Thank you, Connie.
Go for it. You have to drive from this. Oh,
Yeah, I can do
wait a
that.
minute, something just died.
You can
Something
do
died.
that. Let's not jinx it. Can you just
Wake up the
advance
laptop.
the slides?
Wake up, no, the laptop didn't shut down. Ah,
There's a connection.
Temperament.
it's been a few minutes.
There you go.
I'm John Eric White, the city engineer. I'm only putting this up because a lot of people don't know who I am or what projects I've worked on, what firms I've worked on. So I have about 39 years as an active civil engineer. I'm registered. Worked with big firms, small firms, big projects, and small projects. I'm not a water treatment expert by any means. I'm general civil. So my focus is to assist the water department. I've been doing that for like the last 5 years, and I'll go through that. And that is the main, that's my presentation. That's my experience, sorry. Presentation format. This, like Connie said, this is the first time a lot of people have seen all the slides together. So Pete and I are gonna go through them relatively quickly, because if we went detail, it'd be way too much. So as we go through them quickly, hold your questions to the end, please. And we're gonna upload this onto the website tomorrow. So all this, if you have any questions, you can review it and hold off the detailed questions for a subsequent meeting, which next one's Wednesday.
Yes, we have our next meeting Wednesday, 1:30. And I will, just before we get started, so because I meant to say this as housekeeping, yeah, if we can try to keep the questions to the end, just so that we can get through all the material. There are a lot of slides. We're gonna try real hard to get through them relatively quickly so that we can have lots of time for question and answer after, okay?
Yeah. So some of these CIPs began as the result of the work from the, or go to the committee. Oh, sorry. That's good.
No, that one was
Go back up. Resiliency Committee. The committee kicked off in 2015. The box is hard to see, but we had engineers, Andy Port, city planner, city councilor, Concom agent, Concom chair, sustainability director, and a self-taught ocean current and weather person that was, I don't know what other title to give him, but he did a fantastic job. This committee did an excellent job, and a lot of the information that came out of this is presented here next. So the resiliency plan itself went through all the climate hazards. Internally, we did our own extensive climate science research. And we did an in-depth vulnerability assessment, and we proposed adaptation strategies. And again, that's why we're here. The first project that came out of the resiliency plan is this, which is the watershed protection plan. It's by Ty and Bond, finished in 2021. This updated the Weston Sampson 2005 watershed protection. The reason why we updated it, to address climate impacts. The content of this plan is here. I'm not going to go through each one, but we'll talk about them as the projects come up. Just real quick, our artichokes are very shallow. The upper artichoke is just under 7 feet deep. The lower artichoke is just under 5 feet deep on average. Some areas are a little bit deeper, but on average, they're very shallow. So those waters can get very warm. And Pete can attest to that. So climate change is going to impact us on the artichoke reservoirs a lot faster and more frequent and more damaging than Indian Hill. That's 22 feet deep. So this is our water supply system. A lot of people are familiar with it. We have 2 wells, the upper and lower artichoke, the Indian Hill reservoir, which is on the bottom, and in the Bartlett Spring Pond, which is now offline. So 80% comes from our surface water reservoirs. Indian Hill is about 755 million gallons. The upper artichoke is about 270. The lower is about 50. Bartlett, we didn't put it in because it's offline. 20% comes from well 1 and well 2. This graphic, it's better when you call it up if you are interested. It's hard to see here, but this is a good graphic to show visually that on the vertical scale, this is to scale. So these are elevations based on a certain datum. So the elevation of the top of the overflow for the Indian Hill is 61.65. And each one of these elevations are very important for the hydraulics that we get into, especially with the Indian Hill project. Essentially, we go from Indian Hill, it discharges into a pipe, 36-inch outlet. That goes into a stream that goes under the Indian Hill Street, pipes, bridge. That stream, I haven't measured it yet, 3/4 of a mile, something like that. There's a lot of uptake and lost water with that stream. Thus, the Indian Hill project, it dumps into the upper artichoke, and that overflows to the lower, and the intake is at the lower.
So I would add to that, the lower and the upper, my staff controls the levels of those. So we draw down the lower, and then we'll draw down the upper, and then we'll turn Indian Hill on. So if you see right there, it's where his red mark is, it says overflow elevation. So that's actually how we transfer the water from the upper artichoke to the lower when the water level is below the dam. We don't actually physically push the water over the dam to our lower reservoir.
Next. So CIP 12. This is one of the higher priorities that we're reviewing first. This is the original Indian Hill raw water line project. Started, they can hit it. Okay, good. Started from recommendations that were in the watershed protection plan by Ty and Bond. I worked with them for months to come up with all these alternatives. They did a lot of analyses on 7 alternatives. Alternative 6 was proposed by Ty and Bond. The pump station they proposed on the west side, and for everyone to understand, the pump station can be underground, so it's not going to be. We are very likely are not going to propose a pump station similar to one Artichoke, because we want to keep it underground and have it underground as deep as much as possible, except for the entrance. Estimated construction cost by Ty and Bond in 2021, about $14 million. So we gave this project, we awarded to AECOM to do a 30% concept design. Next. This is just a graphic of how, I love graphics like this. Essentially, what you're doing is getting rid of the stream. You pump up to the pump station, and that's just a symbol that's underground. And then you pump all the way to the pump station, Artichoke pump station. So the Indian Hill pump station does not exist, it's being proposed. The Artichoke pump station exists. So for the entire project from the pump station to Indian Hill all the way down, the pros are it gives Pete the ability to shut off both Artichoke reservoirs in case they get contaminated, or if there's dredging that needs to be done, or algae blooms, and it allows us to still have a water supply, because we can go straight from Indian Hill down straight to our pump station, which is the next bullet, new pump station at Indian Hill Reservoir.
So one thing I would add is my understanding is that pump station, if we were to lose the lower Artichoke pump station, would be able to pump to the treatment plant.
Yeah, that's what.
So it would be a redundancy pump station for us.
And that's the second bullet. Redundancy, and that, like I said, that can pump directly, and that's the beauty of that project. The other advantage is it allows the operator, Pete, to pump back from the lower Artichoke back up to Indian Hill in the event that there's a need to move clean water to the upper, because the upper recharges much slower. That has to be evaluated by limnologists, because you can't move water from one to another, especially if it has any kind of algae or anything. So this is a proposal that we're still looking at.
Let me correct you. So the 2 Artichokes have a much faster recharge than Indian Hill. So the Artichokes recharge faster, and then we would pump the water back up.
You have a question?
Nope.
So that's when you hear the term, mixing the reservoirs, that's what it's talking about. If you can move the video. So the beauty of a direct pipe, there's no evapotranspiration from the vegetation along the route, no loss of water. Evapotranspiration is just evaporation and transportation of the plants. No uptake from vegetation. The vegetation doesn't actually pull in the water, so there's no loss of water supply. If we have dry stream beds and it gets opened up, a direct pipe, there'll be no loss of water. And with a direct pipe, there's no total organic carbon that comes from the stream. But is that less?
It's less. It is not. No,
It's not. No,
it is
that's less.
Significantly less total organic carbon
Carbon.
at Indian Hill.
So the cons are the uncertainty of obtaining legal rights to build water infrastructure in West Newbury, getting buy-ins from West Newbury. The current IMA intermunicipal agreement has expired, so that is still ongoing to be worked out between the two communities. We also need an IMA, may need an IMA with Newbury due to future development growth in Newbury, namely the MBTA area around the traffic circle, but also anywhere that we supply the water. So, the phase one, during the concept design, it was broken out to two phases. Phase one is about 3,500 feet of 20-inch plastic HDPE pipe, high-density polyethylene pipe. It's submerged in the reservoir from the upper Artichoke Dam, to the lower. That's it. Improvements to the lower Artichoke pump station. That's part of this 30% from AECOM. Pete is going to go over that in detail on a subsequent slide. Estimated construction cost is about $5.2 million. Next. The draft report from AECOM came out in March 2024. The contents are data collection, Indian Hill pump station options, hydraulic modeling, submerged pipeline, lower Artichoke pump station rehab and yard piping, and then design criteria. So this is simply a graphic of what the submerged pipeline route looks like. On the bottom of the left graphic, it goes from the upper Artichoke Dam, and they'll build like manifolds and put in a manhole, what have you. That's to be determined exactly. But essentially, it's a pipe from there connected to the water on the other side of the dam, gravity fed down to the lower Artichoke pump station. And for phase one, the components will be designed to adapt to phase two connection. But in the event phase two isn't done, our operators can still pull water from the upper Artichoke straight to the pump station in the event that there's a problem with the lower. Next. So AECOM, they are proposing the HDPE submerged pipeline. It's been done in other parts of the country. They gave this to us as part of one of their submittals. It's simply a plastic pipe fused on land. It's even with the concrete anchors, they float it out with extra floats into the water, pull the floating devices, and it lays on the bottom of the reservoir. So the final report was issued December of last year. Contents are similar to the draft. AECOM gave a presentation to the Water Commission, Water Sewer Commission this past summer, June. And the review comments, this is still ongoing. So the review comments for this is still unresolved. It's not a final as far as to proceed into the next design phase. This is still ongoing. Next. So this is a graphic. There's no perfect place to put this, but this is a decent place to put it. FEMA flood elevation changed during us working with all these engineers. So it used to be 12, now it's 12.4. So now the spillway is even lower than before. And now the upper is at the elevation of the 1% 100-year, which is the 100-year storm. So we have to keep this in mind. This came out in June. So I'm also managing the dam project. This impacts that, it impacts decision-making because DEP recommends to have your critical assets for the water supply to be 2 feet above the 100-year storm. Next. This is you.
So this is the current, upgrade to the current raw, oh, it is not like that, is it? Raw water pump station that is on Story Ave. The reason it was listed as Indian Hill / Story Ave pump station is there was some money that came as a congressional earmark that was geared towards the full Indian Hill project. It needed to be reworked so we could use it for this station. So just to not confuse people, we added or struck Indian Hill, but it is was still part of that larger project, so we're able to use that money towards it. What are we doing at that station? We're currently replacing all of the pumps and motors that are over there. Currently we have what they call a magnet drive motor, which is 2 magnets that open and close to decide how much flow we're gonna get to the treatment plant. The motors over there run at 100% year round. So magnet drive, or VFDs will make those pumps and motors more efficient and drive the energy cost for that station down. Currently, we do not meet the design spec for that station. We have 1 raw water pump that is out of service, and we cannot get anyone to service that. We are also going to be increasing the size of our permanganate storage system and dust control, as it does not meet our current demand. Just a visual, the picture on the far right is the magnets that oscillate in and out to control the pump speed, and then the VFDs is over here on your left, and that would be in a cabinet that would control the pumps and motors. That is currently what all water treatment plants have. We actually have 2 other magnet drives that were in the system that have been since replaced due to failure.
CIP 20, the water supply protection and the plan. Next. This graphic here, next is, this is just a graphic showing the watershed. So you can see in grayish Indian Hill at the bottom, and then upper and then lower. The watershed's pretty big. The dashed line is the town boundary, town and city boundary. To the right, upper northeast is obviously Newburyport. To the direct west is clearly West Newbury. Down the bottom is Newbury. So we have 3 towns that dump into our reservoirs. There's a lot of land uses that currently exist, and there's dog walking, there's horseback riding, fishing, residences, agriculture, roadways, horse stables. We have cows, we got dairy, geese. Pete just explained to me today that geese exacerbates cyanobacteria. It puts the cyanobacteria on steroids.
The geese do not, their excrement does.
Well,
So,
I mean, I hope that's clear.
It's a horse
just to make
poop.
that clear.
Yeah.
It's all poops.
And also also the dog walking, and also the horses, it's their dumping. It's not the dog walking. But no, that's a good clarification, especially the horse stables, because some of our BMPs that we want to work with everyone on is funding to help out, put things up that makes everyone's life easier. Septic systems produce, all the other ones produce phosphorus. The slide before produces primarily phosphorus. For years, decades, everyone has known that phosphorus and nitrogen create algae blooms. In our water supply, which Pete is very experienced with, it's primarily from phosphorus, but we also have nitrogen issues. We may have nitrogen issues. Typically, a failed septic system releases nitrogen. So when this comes into the watershed, boots on the ground action item. This is probably low, it's probably low on the priority because it's nitrogen. Phosphorus is much worse. So the best way to manage watershed is you can create a water resource protection district. We've created one years ago. It is like decades ago. As you can see from the city-town boundary, so we control to the right of that line. To the left, that's in West Newbury. We don't have control to the left. We still have the graphic shown, but this is really just for our city.
You guys get off.
Yeah, I think your arrow was on its own page.
Oh, okay. Listen closely. There's bullets on the left. That's interesting.
Hit it again, maybe it comes up.
Yeah, just go back.
That was
Up
your
there,
slide,
yeah.
that was your?
This is fine. No,
Hold on.
don't touch.
Oh,
Nope.
Go back. Okay, leave that. The graphic was the West Newbury.
This one, right?
that one?
That graphic is the groundwater protection.
Hold on.
Just hit pause.
There you go. That's the one you want.
Groundwater Protection Overlay District. Gotta say it fast before we lose it. They have a groundwater protection overlay district for their wells. And they are protecting their wells. Go back to the bullets. So what we would like, in a perfect world of watershed management, we would like to, we need to work with West Newbury. We'd like to create a surface water supply protection district, or help them create one. Our role is not to send out the police. Our role is to work and come up with ideas to, when we identify a property, let's work together to find some funding. A lot of these concerns, the fix is cheap. So by all means, this should not be, I don't want anyone to be alarming, to be alarmed with that bullet. Groundwater Protection Overlay District is what they have. We need to do some kind of inspections on watershed, and again, that's teamwork. Pete does testing of the water in the tributaries. Manure management plan, that's it's simple. You put an awning over the manure pile so the rainwater doesn't hit it. There's money for that, we can work with that. Also, you haul away the manure. There's companies that do that. The horse people know that. Some you do it, some don't. I'm not too sure. I don't own a horse, but that's a possibility. And then the Watershed Protection Committee is something that we recommended. This came out of even before the resiliency watershed protection plan that was updated by Ty and Bond. That came up with this, but we even talked about it before that. The committee can be helpful, get members of both communities, and get all the experts, and then keep this going. Next. So, quiz, what's the best way to protect the watershed? Buy the land, turn it into conservation. Essex County Greenbelt has done a phenomenal job. They have bought, I'm so impressed, I don't even know how they handle it. They have bought so many properties on their own, knowing that they want to help watersheds. Yes, we call them and work with them, and we do teamwork all the time. Not me, other people in the city. But they have bought properties on their own just to be a good,
Steward of the land.
steward, thank you, that's the word I was thinking of. So, but it takes money. We all know it takes money. CPC monies are available. There's other grants. For the Rogers property in the lower right, Prior owner was Rogers, so internally we call it Rogers Property Land Purchase. It's now called Artichoke River Woods. That's right against the upper Artichoke. I mean, it's right there. Or lower Artichoke. It's right there. That's perfect protection. The Indian Hill Conservation Area, I'm not familiar with that. But they did buy a lot of land, and it should be in one of these blue areas. The next thing we need to do for watershed protection is public education. These graphics are decades old. Engineering firms have been using them for decades in USDA. Everyone's been, this is common knowledge. Everything from BMPs to, like I just said earlier, a BMP is a best management practice. So simple things, like I said before, you can put a roof over the stockpiles. The other thing that you can do is regrade the land, have it run off into like a detention pond, and then have Mother Nature treat that, and then everyone wins. This is where we can help, because like I said, we aren't creating police. This is where we work to get grants. In each one of these graphics on the right, septic system failures, I'm not sure about that. I don't think we can provide grants for that. That's related to the Board of Health. But you know, we can do grants for all the other things, and that's truly what we need to do, working together with West Newbury. Next. So when all these plans were being put together, my office was way too busy to deal with the watershed, plus it was out of my league. Usually the water divisions and municipal water suppliers are required to have a watershed protection plan required by DEP. We've had one before. I'm not gonna get into that, but we decided to hire someone to update it, and Wood and Kern, we hired them. They updated what we had. They're calling it the Water Supply Watershed Program Framework. And I'm told by them that this can be used as a watershed plan approved by DEP. So this can be our official watershed plan for our water department. Tom managed this. Tom Kuzik, our prior plant super, he managed this. I don't have a perfect handle, and I'm not going to put Pete on the spot. He just started. But right now, this came out in June of 2023. There's still a little bit of work to be done, and most of this work in this framework is everything I just talked about. Public education, working with us at West Newbury, overlay districts, all that. It's all in here. And I'm going to turn it over to Pete for the water quality.
Hold on, let me move that. So this water quality plan came about in, I guess, one of the person in the room I want to acknowledge, who's going to hate me in a minute, is my assistant, Chris Hood.
Take a stand, Chris.
So in 2019, 2020, Tom Cusick came to both of us and said, hey, I think we should do some more water quality monitoring. And we hired DK Consultants, and he came in and wrote up a cyanobacteria monitoring plan, which we actually still use today. And I want to say we're on version 2 or 3 at this point, but it has been a great tool for the city. Currently, we have roughly 28 different tributaries that we monitor, at least quarterly. One of our drivers is if we have a heavy rain for a flushing sample, we go out and we take those. So, as John Eric pointed out, phosphorus is not my friend. So currently they say anything above 25 to 100 micrograms per liter of phosphorus is bad for your reservoir and will have frequent and persistent blooms. So currently, these are the totals in our lower artichoke. In April of '24, we had almost 250. We're consistently above 25. The upper, where most of our blooms start, if you see the tail end of 25, we're above 50 and averaging 100 on all of our samples. Why is this important? So currently, we will be treating possibly our reservoirs for the 6th time this year. This is unheard of for us. Every time we treat, we're able to push the bloom back, but we're not able to completely retard the bloom. And that has to do with the biomass in the reservoir and the fact that we knock it back, but it's just regenerating itself from the biomass that's currently down there and the phosphorus. Oops, sorry. Reservoirs need improvement. Currently, we have a study with our contract limnologist to give us a overview of how much phosphorus is in the sediment of the reservoir and how much phosphorus is actually being added to the reservoirs yearly by our tributaries. Once we have that plan or suggestions from her, most likely the city will be looking at some type of alum treatment. So alum will lock up the phosphorus and not make it available for the cyanobacteria to bloom. Water meter project, replacement project, that is to make sure that our metering in the city is accurate and all of our unaccounted for water is also accurate. Plum Island chlorine booster station is a maintenance upgrade for us to meet the changing demands on the island and the current chem feed system that we have down there to upgrade that as well. Treatment plant improvements. Wanted to give everybody a little bit of an overview of the water system. I know John Eric's touched on it a little bit. We do have 4 reservoirs. Bartlett Pond is currently offline due to PFAS. That is a loss to the water treatment plant of 2.88 million gallons a day. We have 2 groundwater wells, our raw water station that is currently on the CIP to be rehabbed, a treatment plant that was built in 1985, so we're roughly 40 years old. There have been some improvements there, but there's still some stuff there that is 40 plus years old. The max that plant can do is around 3.3 million gallons a day, and our max summer demand in 2024 was 2.5 million, and 1.7 is our average during the winter time. We have a finish station that was built in 2012 that has 2 backwash pumps and 4 finish pumps that we are able to pump to the city with. We have the 2 elevated storage tanks and then Plum Island booster station.
Let's keep that. I think you said
2.88 million gallons.
2.28.
0.3, 2.88.
2.28
2.28.
million gallons
Yeah.
a day is not 0.2. That's all I'm saying. It's 0.3. Because our plant is only 1.5. I'm only clarifying. No, that's it.
Okay.
I'm just trying to help.
So the proposed upgrade to the treatment plant, estimated cost is 26.3 million. It would have 6 carbon vessels, a new clear well, and high lift pumps. It would be able to treat PFAS, remove cyanobacteria toxins, taste and odor, and remove organics more efficiently. If the city were to need a new treatment plant in the future, which most likely it will, this building will not be able to be incorporated in that new treatment plant. And due to the new PFAS regulations being pushed back to 2031, this is currently not a proposed CIP. A new treatment plant would be roughly $50 to $60 million. It would increase the resiliency at the treatment plant, increase potential build out, newer technologies, improve energy efficiency, and no need to work around outdated infrastructure or design limitations.
So phase 2. Phase 2 is, I'm just going to give you the quick graphic. It goes from a proposed pump station up at Indian Hill. The pipe route was the alternate that's been agreed upon. It's in yellow. and then it's gonna connect to the phase one at the upper Artichoke Dam. Estimated construction cost is $18.0 million. So the Lower Artichoke Dam is a project that I'm managing with Time Bond. This was also one of the early ones that we decided that would be extremely important because, I mean, for many reasons, but for now, I'm gonna go slide by slide. These are just basic graphics that were presented in the past. Flooding of reservoirs creates sediment loads, bacteria, loading, the nutrients and contamination. So we all know about a backwater event. We don't want a backwater event. The white graphic up top, believe it or not, the feds in the state allowed PFAS to be sent into the Merrimack River from one or two facilities or treatment plants upstream. I'm only bringing it up because PFAS may be in the Merrimack River as well. So that's another reason for the breach, preventing a breach. And so we know about the breach. Let's move on to the next one. This is just a graphic to show what the dam looks like. It's hard to see the red, but the dam is actually 4/5 of a mile. It's 4,300 feet long, 4/5 of a mile. And it goes from the west side, very, deep south into the Artichoke, into the reservoir. Comes up, turns, the spillway is at the top, and then it wraps around on the right. So the terminology is that the earthen embankment, the embankment is the earth part of the dam. Next. The concrete, this is a concrete spillway. This controls the water level for many reasons. It during a flooding event, just normal hydrology of upstream, if we didn't have this and we waited for the overflow to go over the entire earthen dam, you would be flooding everywhere. So what you do is you control it with what we call a spillway. So this, when you see this off of Starry Ave, that's a concrete spillway. That's not the dam. The earth to the left and right for that 4/5 of a mile, that's the dam. Go back up. The elevation, this is important, the elevation of the embankment is currently 12 with some low spots down to 10.8. And the spillway is about 8.8, elevation 8.8. Those numbers are important. The intake, for those that don't know, we try not to put this out in public too often, but it's right around there, switch. Executive, so this is the, that thing's hiding it.
I don't know if I want to touch that.
Yeah. So this graphic, you guys, is the Lower Dam Inspection Report Executive Summary. The reason why I have this is it sets up, everyone needs to know the existing conditions of the dam because it plays into what projects we do and what we don't. It's in poor condition. It also was in poor condition, rated poor in 2009. And this is this inspection was performed by AECOM. The dam crest condition is poor. So that's the top of the embankment. There's animal burrows, eroded areas. There's irregularly eroded slope areas, sinkholes. So the fact that this is now lower than the 100-year storm and it's in poor condition, that's a red flag that if we got hit with a storm, this dam would fail. When it fails, because of the dam condition, then you lose your water, and then you got to rebuild the dam. That's just things to consider as we work this whole process out. Next. Sea level rise, that's one reason that Ty and Bond is proposing to raise it. We also recommend to raise it, the Resilience Committee, obviously. And that's the number one reason. So we are, go to the next one. This is what we presented to the Water and Sewer Commission this June. And essentially, we gave the Water Sewer Commission an update. Excuse me. We gave them an update on the status of this project because we reached a point where we need direction and we need some advice. I need advice as the project manager how to move forward with this. So we put the project on hold because of the ad hoc committee work. But going to the Water Commission, we wanted to present to them, get their brains going on what they think we should do. So, raising the water level or keep it as is, the water level of the reservoir. It's 8.8 now. If we raise the water level, there's benefits with that. The concerns with raising the water level, property takings or some kind of easement or some kind of granting of change in the shoreline. Permit constraints, state permitting can be difficult. We're trying to work with the state to relax the permits, but that's still in limbo. Environmental impacts, mitigation. If you flood, we're going to flood wetland resource areas, and that requires a mitigation that the Conservation Commission will chime in on. The benefits are additional water supply, possible water quality improvements. The linologists would need to do more research to see if 5 feet higher helps, is it really going to improve? If 5 feet higher of water elevation, does it substantially improve the water quality? To be determined. The benefits of raising it is against drought, it's more volume. Pretty basic. A decision on the embankment is, how high do we raise the embankment? Right now we're proposing 20 feet, but we can go to 24 feet to save on future construction costs. I'm going to leave that, we'll table that for a future discussion with everybody. Next. So this is the layout of the dam. We couldn't send the dam straight into the hill over here because that would we would lose too much wetland resource areas. It's BVW, border vegetated wetland, and DEP and the Concom would not like that. So we wrapped it around and we drove it into the hill because we don't need a 4,000 foot dam. So drive it into the hill sooner. On the other side, on the east side, drive it straight into that hill, and then you don't have to. The construction is much cheaper. We're proposing a crest gate at the spillway. If we leave the water elevation as is, go ahead and flip. If we leave the water elevation as is, the bottom green maintain existing spillway elevation of 875. If we leave that as is, then we would design the height of the gate per what we can all afford and per what we all decide. You can make it as high as you want. Right now, we're proposing 18.2. 22.2 has other benefits, and we'll get into those weeds later. But essentially, we need a new spillway because you can't attach these to the existing spillway. And no, go back. I removed a graphic because I'm trying to save time. We're going to end up with 3 of these gates, and in total, it's I think it's about 150 feet wide. But in total, we need 3 gates because of the hydraulics of the system. And so this comes with a cost. If we raise the water level, you can raise a concrete dam, cheaper construction, but then you got all the permitting issues. So that's to be determined. This is just a graphic of what I said about the new FEMA flood. So the second circular bullet, the spillway is now 3.6 feet lower than the high-year flood. That's very dangerous. The top embankment, the dam embankment, is now 0.4. So if we technically get the 100-year storm, it'll overtop the entire lower dam. That was different than when we started the project with, the dam was at 12 because that was the 100-year storm prior. The Amesbury interconnection. I worked on this, the former super Tom Kuzik. When he saw the bloom, he made the phone calls. He called environmental partners. I believe they were one of our engineers on call. They're very experienced with this type of thing. They put together a plan. They put together a report and a plan for, and they worked with a contractor that's very experienced in temporary pipelines. And they came up with this plan. And essentially, it's a connection on the Newburyport side, which is the low part of the graphic. It goes over the bridge on the bike path. So the bike path is 8 feet or whatever it is. It'll be on the left side up against the wall. We got the approval from DOT. The other interconnection point on the other side is on Main Street in Amesbury. So we got the approval from DOT. We need an access permit. And we achieved getting that. That went back and forth for details. In the long term, they prefer a more permanent use. They were worried about multiple things, losing the bike lane, so we're hoping to reduce the width but not lose it, so on and so forth. We renew this permit annually. It's just, we get the alert and we request to extend it for a year. So we are currently under this permit. If we were to need this and implement it, we could do it. The estimate for this, it's hard to estimate because the availability of HDPE pipe is unknown until you need it. So at the time, 2020, or actually 2021 technically when they finished the report, it was about $750,000. I'm not going to even assume that I know what the real cost would be. But it's not cheap. And the thing that the city council needs to know, and administration, everyone, to buy the pipe takes time. So they're gonna buy the pipe, that takes weeks, and so all that is not it's not an overnight thing. And this is yours.
At one point, there was a former CIP that talked about dredging of the upper and lower reservoir. Currently, that is not on any of the projects. That would be to remove the organic matter that has settled down from years of cyanobacteria blooms, the fact that these reservoirs were at one point actually pasture land that were flooded over, so any nutrients that was down there. But the dredging obviously comes at a cost. It comes at a permitting time. And the best time to do it would be as if we had the Indian Hill pipeline to be able to dredge around it.
And that's pretty much, go to Q&A. That's pretty much it. I do want to have one more comment. The solution for all of these CIPs, it's not an easy decision. If it was easy, we probably wouldn't be here. One CIP may remove the need for another CIP. So maybe the Indian Hill, if completed fully, can replace a certain height of the dam. Maybe you don't need the dam for a certain height. But, sacrificing the 2 artichokes and not having any water from those is something that we have to collectively think about because we don't want to lose the water supply. So I just throw that out because each one of these will need to be looked at to be adjusted and really vetted out more because each one right now, some of these aren't talking to each other because we got different consultants. I'm the project manager on one, Tom was on the other, he's now gone, Pete has to catch up. So all these need to start talking together, and I just want to throw that out.
Great, thank you so much to both of you. I first just want to say, I get that this is an enormous amount of information. So, I think that's a lot of why even we as counselors have struggled with this so much. And we went through this really fast because we did want to make sure that we had enough time for comments and questions here. And so a couple things. I do want to recognize the other counselors. Counselor McCauley did come in the room. He actually is on the ad hoc committee. I also want to recognize Counselor Heath Granis. If you could just say hi, raise your hand. Counselor Heather Shand as well. Say hi. As well as Counselor Ben Harmon. They are not on this particular committee, and because of open meeting law, they are not allowed to speak tonight. I know that's very awkward and cumbersome, but but because there are 5 of us on the committee, if a 6th counselor were to speak, then we are officially in a committee, a full council meeting, which we are not. This is a committee meeting, right? So having said that, I do want to sort of look to committee members first and see if there are any burning questions, things that you wanted to ask of the presenters. Because I'm sure if you're thinking it, somebody in the audience is likely thinking it, but I do want to give deference to the committee members first, and then we will, if there's enough time, we'll open it up to the public as well. So, committee members.
Yeah, I can get started.
Go for it, Counselor Cox.
Yeah, thank you very much, to the 2 presenters. That was fantastic, and I thank everyone who's here tonight too. A lot of what we want to do is make sure you guys heard the same information we're getting at the same time. I will ask a few questions, but I really do want to give the public here an opportunity as well. I think if we could go back to the graphic that had the elevations. Oh, and Councilor Wright is on and has her hand raised, but I think he knows that.
Yeah,
Maybe just recognition that he's
that is a good point. Counselor Mark Wright is also here on the attendees. It's really hard to do this.
Yeah, so if we can go back to, one of the graphics I
Yeah.
really liked is the one that shows the depth, the reservoir versus Indian Hill, as well as kind of the flow of that, all the systems, looking at them kind of holistically. One of the things that, this was a lot of information, I have specific questions on some of the projects. We don't have all the costs next to each other. But what I will be looking for as we do this ad hoc is to see that graphic with the projects. Do you know which
No.
one? No, keep going.
Keep going.
The one that was a graph with the,
The elevations?
yes,
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
vertical.
Yeah.
Yes, this one right here I think is fantastic because it gives that snapshot of the whole holistic system of what we're talking about with our water. And for me personally, what the efforts, we heard about a lot of projects. I think knowing, and I thought the city engineer said it well, these are gonna be somewhat codependent on each other, and in some cases they're not. So what would really help me, and what I'm gonna probably start off when we have our ad hoc, is to get clarity around the projects and as they impact each of these kind of elements. I'll see it as almost separate types of elements. Some are connected, some are independent. The other thing that's gonna be important is when you prioritize, you wanna know based on a timeline. One thing that was not clear in the projects is how long does it take? How long are we looking at? So as we also look at projects, if it's like one project that we're talking about $13 million, but it will be over 4 or 5 years, you wonder on the impact of the other projects. So to me, not only are costs important, but the timeline. And that timeline in some cases, and one with the IMA, that is something that's gonna be on factors outside of our control. So those are very hard to anticipate in terms of its priority. Like, do we start it now, or do we have so many things that we depend on that we may need to do some other items based on how quick we can get to where we need to be. So with that said, great presentation. I do have some notes I took here, but I would really like to also make sure the public is getting their chance to say their piece, and then we will have time at the ad hoc. So that's all I want to share. Thank you.
100% agree. Other counselors on the committee, do you have anything you wanted to bring up instead of going to public? Okay. All right, great. Without that, hands? I think that's Owen Smith in the back there.
Yeah.
Owen, what do you got?
Yeah, so I have a question, kind of goes to emergency preparedness. We're talking about the emergency interconnect as one example, and lead time on material. Now, I'm wondering, has the city explored other options like high pressure temporary hosing and things like that they use on water main projects? And two, related to the dam, I understand there's some mitigation work done. Have we done a recent dam safety inspection report, and have the repairs been responsive to the previous officials? So just kind of E-prep and tabletop stuff.
As far as, the only thing I have put down for the first one is DP, like intermunicipal connections.
So we did the trimming on one side, the West Newbury side of the earthen embankment as part of one of the dam improvements that was recommended. It is also due for another dam inspection. So once that dam inspection is done, then we'll have a better idea of where the dam project is. We do have AECOM on retainer to help us with a mock, I guess, sandbag, putting the sandbags on the dam. We will not put them on the dam, but we will line them up and move them. And we did just actually get a grant to purchase a sandbag super sack filler. So if one were to break, we'd be able to fill it much quicker.
Yeah, I was thinking that aqua dam could be a good application there too.
It was explored. I don't know where
Yeah.
that went.
Yeah, I can address that.
Can I
So,
just, it occurs to me that the only real speaker we have in the room is sitting right here, so it's very unlikely that the
Yeah.
people at home and the recording are gonna hear what those questions are. So the question was, would an aqua dam, so when the question comes in, we could just sort of do our best to repeat it. Would an aqua dam be deployable in this position?
so, that was the emergency spillway protection that we worked on. We worked on it with both conservation commissions, took over a year. We looked at various options. The Aqua Dam is a proprietary, it's a company that he's talking about. We looked at that. The reason why we didn't do it is they don't have the height that we need. Because when you put it on the downstream water elevation, it ends up being needed too high. The bladder up against the two wing walls wasn't gonna work. So a simple gravel platform is what we came up with. We permitted it, we built it, and it's done. So that's a done deal. And right now, that the sandbags can go on that platform anytime Pete gets the warning.
Richard Lash.
Yeah, two questions. One is, I assume that if the day that we eventually spend $25 or more million to build a new water treatment plant, if I remember the slide right, it said that would treat and remove PFAS. So I assume that would mean that the Bartlett Pond water would then be available for drinking water because it could be treated. Is that correct?
That is correct. The question was if we were to build a PFAS treatment plant, would the Bartlett pond be able to be used again? Yes, it would be.
And is that the only water source we have where there's a concern about PFAS?
No. The question is, are there any other sources in the city that are impacted by PFAS? Well 2 has PFAS in it, and well 1 also has PFAS in it. Well 1 is the one that sits directly behind the water treatment plant on Old Ferry Road. And well 2 is the one that sits over on Ferry Road on the other side of 95. Both of them have PFAS in the water. It is currently below the MCL for the state.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
And again, realizing that the dredging of upper and lower artichokes is not under consideration right now, but obviously had been studied. Is there, and I assume because it was agricultural land and never industrial, dredging wouldn't necessarily bring up PCBs or heavy metals or anything else that might be behind the dam in a more industrial area? Is it just organic material you think would be bringing up?
The question is, what is the material in the upper and lower reservoir? It's mostly organic material. But I will have a better answer for that once our soil samples have been analyzed.
Can I add one point, because I think it is really important, and it was in the slides, but there's just so much information to get here, but I want to be very clear that what's in the CIP right now is a $23.5 million upgrade to our existing facility to be able to manage PFAS, to be able to get PFAS out of the water, right? And that is going to be a federal requirement that we do that by 2031. However, what was also in the slides and is not at all in the CIP and was even sort of a new concept for me as we brought out this ad hoc is our current water treatment facility is 40 years old. And if we spend $23.5 million on this upgrade to the existing facility, it's not like we could build a new facility and just still use that new addition to it. It would, it is likely that our current water treatment facility will be out of date very soon, if not arguably is out of date. And if we spend $23.5 million to put an addition on that building, we could be potentially building a new building in 10 years, and that $23.5 million has only gotten us through those last 10 years. So, certainly something that we need to be thinking about more holistically is, do we skip an addition to the existing facility and really focus our efforts on building a new water treatment facility? Of course, now we're talking $50-60 million for a full new treatment facility, but we could potentially be saving $23.5 million on a renovation to our existing facility. So I just want to make sure that point wasn't lost on anybody. Mr. Hawkins.
Just a
Thank you.
just a question on so the timeline. So once the pipeline, the bypass is in from the Indian Hill all the way down to the pumping station. I had thought that you were going to continue using some of the water in the lower artichoke to supplement water coming through the pipeline, but I hadn't heard that you were going to be pumping some of the lower artichoke water back into Indian Hill. And is there any plans on that to do some partial treatment before it goes back up?
Sorry, the question is about pumping water back to Indian Hill from the lower artichoke. Currently, there's no plans. It was talked about in the total project as an option to increase the firm yield of the reservoirs. But with the shape that the lower and upper reservoir are in with the phosphorus loading, I would basically pollute Indian Hill, and I'd have cyanobacteria blooms in Indian Hill. So we need to take care of the upper and lower before I would even consider pumping that water back up.
Okay, my assumption was correct. Okay.
Anyone else? Rainey Eng, yes?
Yes. I know a lot of people here may have a lot of knowledge about water quality. I do not, so. I have two questions. First, from your professional opinion, on a scale of 1 to 10, how dire at current is the water quality situation? And with the proposed plans, then how much will that improve? I need a 1 to 10, really simple person assumption.
So I would say that.
Well, can I just repeat
yeah,
that?
Sorry.
The question is, how dire is the situation today? Scale of 1 to 10, if willing. And with the plans, where would we find ourselves? Yeah.
The plans for the treatment plant or for the reservoirs?
Tell me both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take both.
So I would say that the reservoirs are probably, if I had to rate it, probably a 9 or a 10 at this point. In the past, we've treated them 2 or 3 times. We've taken care of the blooms. As I said, we'll be doing plankton samples, or I didn't say about the plankton samples, we'll be doing plankton samples on Wednesday. If the bloom is still at the current level it was last Wednesday, we'll be doing a 6th treatment. So we have yet to be able to completely mitigate the bloom in the Artichoke Reservoir system. The treatment plant, it is a very good conventional filtration plant. We do not have any redundancy at that plant. So if I were to lose any part of my process, that 3.3 MGD that I said the plant can do will get cut in half. So the best I'd be able to do is around 1.7 MGD a day.
Which, to be clear, is less than what we are currently using during the day in the summers, but we'd be right at the edge of what we're doing in the winter.
Let me, in the proposed upgrade would also not increase that. I would still be capped at the 3.3 due to the processes before where that building addition would go into the plant process.
All right. Are you satisfied?
What
it-
would
oh, you
the
didn't give a
1
number.
to 10 rating be after we implemented the proposed solutions?
The proposed treatment?
Yes.
Well, solutions. I think
Oh,
she's
so
saying
all
of
the
them.
solutions?
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
All the solutions?
Yeah, like is it gonna get us to like a 6 or are we getting down to like a 2?
So if we were to do, to, I guess, treat the reservoirs and potentially I'll say a new treatment plant,
Mhm.
I would sleep very well at night, if
Okay.
that helps you.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
I'll just add a little bit to that. One of the things we as a committee need to understand is how to balance all of these, right? And one of the things, certainly in my mind right now, is because we didn't even touch on this tonight, but if we were to do an upgrade to the facility and turn it into a reverse osmosis facility, which comes with its own challenges, that becomes, it's very energy intensive. There's a lot of waste from that, but we could potentially be then taking the water out of the Merrimack because we'd be able to treat everything, all the PFAS, all the things out of that. We were talking about a very expensive project, but it could potentially lose the necessity for all of these other projects. So in defense of Pete, I think it's very hard to say, if we do everything, then we're a 1, right? But it's a matter, do we do everything? Because realistically, we cannot be doing everything, right? So, but yeah, if we had all the money in the world, we could, we could make it perfect, right? But we don't have all the money in the world, and we need to make those sort of priority decisions to figure that out. So, Ms. Delat.
Yes, thank you. I think a lot of people are confused about the dam and why the dam got dropped off the capital plan. I read the, is it CAR or CARE report, and it seemed counterintuitive that even though it was rated high on criticality, I think because of its cost, it got rated lower. And I think that maybe it would be helpful to explain that some of that ranking had to do with not just the criticality, but the cost, the availability of funding, which is another question there about like what kind of funding might be available, probably less than a year ago, but what kind of funding is available. But also the permitting, I think, was another complexity that factored into it. So maybe just to help people understand that the dam, while we're hearing words like poor condition, emergency, 3.4 feet below, like why wouldn't that just rise to the top?
I can address that.
Can I just, the question is why, if I can short it all down, why isn't the dam project more of an urgency for the city?
So, when all these CIPs were moving fast and furious, it became clear that we needed to hire someone to help us evaluate the entire water system. That effort to find someone to evaluate and help us guide us to give us advice on the best way to move forward for the entire system, that turned into a project management exercise. PAR submitted quals for that RFP that we put out. We didn't pick them for any particular project, but we hired them to evaluate the CIPs that we have now. They met with each of us department heads, 2 or 3 people in the water division. They met with myself. I believe they met with the administration. I don't know who else in the administration they met with. But essentially, they put together a summary of what the ranking should be for CIPs. You would have to go to the power report to see the parameters in there, but they looked at everything. They looked at cost, permittability, and all that. What I can say is that I sat in on the Water Commission presentation by them, and that was in June, and I had some questions and concerns about their ranking, and their answer to me, and this is simply the way it happened. My opinions are my opinions. Their opinions are their opinions. I asked them why the dam is ranked last, and what I asked them as far as phase 1, why phase 1 is first when the new FEMA flood elevation got higher. They weren't concerned with the higher FEMA flood elevation. You can go back to the minutes. They said it's going to be unlikely that we'll get a 100-year storm. Hasn't happened yet. And they were confident with that. So I presented my comments. We heard back from them. Apparently, it didn't change the ranking. So they felt, as well as other people, that lower artichoke can be sacrificed as long as the phase 1 is in, even though the flood elevation is higher.
Okay, I'm gonna go with, actually Sarah Hall, since you haven't asked anything.
Thank you. Kind of a related question, just a bit broader. I attended the storm surge presentation where, John, if you presented, this was 4 years ago, and I was hearing very similar concerns about these vulnerabilities and the solutions. And so I guess I'm just not sure why none of this has been prioritized over the past 4 years. And just adding on to that, I think at the top of the meeting, someone mentioned that the idea for the Amesbury interconnect is no longer being considered. And so that's, I guess my question is just how have none of these solutions been prioritized over the past 4 years?
Let me just repeat. So first, the question is, how since these projects have been talked about for at least the last 4 years, how have they not been more of a priority over the last 4 years? And how did the interconnect with Amesbury fall off the CIP list entirely?
The only thing I can say is that there's a lot going on, and the DPS director is responsible for 3 divisions: water, sewer, and highway. We've never had a DPS director that had any knowledge with water. Because of that, there was a lack of planning to put all the pieces together. So we caught ourselves with the project managers doing our thing, myself, Tom Kuzik, trying to do the best we can to coordinate everything. When you do that in silos, there was a lack of coordination that we're trying to work out now. And I only say that because there was no definitive reason other than, the director's busy on so many projects and it just didn't happen. And it's complex. That's why we wanted to bring someone in. There's a lot of technicalities here. This is a perfect storm. All these are intermingled. It's a perfect storm. So that's why we always needed someone that could put it all together. The interconnect, I think the falling off is just simple. We have the permit that we keep updating. So we haven't had a bloom since 2020. So it kind of naturally fell off, but I'll turn it over to you.
Rephrase that.
Okay.
So we've had a bloom in 2020, 2021, 2022, 23 we did not, in 24 we had a bloom, and 25 we currently have a bloom. 23 we did not have a bloom because we had water going over the lower dam continuously throughout the year.
Kim Turner, sorry, the Special Projects Manager Turner, is there anything you'd like to add as someone who is an architect of the CIP?
No, I'm not gonna, I'll get back to you, I'm trying to figure out why I remember there was a good reason why the Amesbury interconnect didn't happen, but I can't recall right now, so I will get back to you on that.
I mean, yeah, I know why we
Okay. Dan Sachs.
So on the water commission, we had a meeting about this interconnect project. And one of the things we discussed is exactly what you said, John Eric, the availability of the pipe was really a costly situation to manage. You had to order 4 weeks, 6 weeks ahead of time, and you weren't guaranteed you were going to get it. So why even have the project if you can't get the pipe? I mean, you need the water immediately. So the idea of not being able to get the pipe was kind of a big roadblock. Not only that, if you do buy the pipe ahead of time, and you store it, where are you going to store it? Right? Where's all this pipe going to be stored? And it degrades.
Right.
If it degrades over a year or two, then it's waste. You have to buy a new pipe again.
Yeah.
So project just did not seem to make sense.
Yeah, in a mile, you know, as long as it is, I mean, I forgot exactly how long, but it's over the bridge and then down the street. It's you would need a large warehouse. We just don't have the land for that. You know, it's a lot of pipe. So that was the decision that was made back then. And yeah, frankly, I think it was a good decision. We can't buy it, so the next best thing is to pray that it'll become available when we need it.
I'm gonna go back here. Sorry, I don't know your name, just because you haven't asked yet.
My name is Lily.
Could we give you first and last names?
Lily Norquist. Can you just expound on what you mean by sacrificing the lower artichoke?
So this is just.
The question is, sorry, the question is what is meant by sacrificing the lower artichoke?
So what that means is if there's a belief that if you have the other projects in place and the lower artichoke gets breached, gets contaminated, and simply can't be used, the definition of sacrificing it is that event is known to happen if phase 1 were to be built. They acknowledge that it could be sacrificed with a breach and will still be fine with phase 1.
Good. Richard Lodge?
Yeah,
I'd like
to revisit Sarah Hall's question because, and I heard your answer, John Eric, and I also was at the presentation 4 years ago. I'm not laying this on you, but here we are 4 years later. You realize there's lots of complicated, interconnected projects here. They don't all have to be done at once. They could be if we had the money. Some need to happen, some are less important. Who owns this thing? Are we going to be here 4 years from now having the same conversation? Or is this task force going to soon make some recommendations to the administration, which might then put something on track soon?
Yeah, I'll grab this one.
Summarize that for me.
Exactly. So, I'm maybe going to be a little too summary in this, but essentially, Mr. Lodge is pushing back on how we have gotten here, 4 years later, and we still aren't prioritizing these projects. And I will say I share your frustration. I agree with you, and I think a lot of what we are doing with this ad hoc is to try to get the council more involved in this and really generate more understanding about the projects, both within the council but within the general public as well. Because I find a lot of this alarming. I find our water supply to be at the very least a high risk situation. And certainly as a counselor, for me, it's extremely concerning that we potentially have our water, our drinking water at risk. There are lots of things that municipalities do, but basic services such as clean drinking water, I think are should be right up there as the most important. So, us as an ad hoc, what we're really trying to do here is to shed some light on all of this, but also bring our own recommendations forward about the prioritizations of the project. Having said all of that, these are exceedingly expensive projects, right? I mean, we're talking about a lot of money. Just the critical water infrastructure projects are about $68 million around, right? And so, it's really hard to get your arms around all of this. But I, for one, agree with you that continuing to kick the can down the road certainly isn't an act in getting our arms around this, right? But I will also say, the council cannot drive the prioritization of the projects. The council can't decide what budget items come forward, right? That only comes from the administration. We can only say yes or no to projects as they are delivered to us in terms of the financing of those projects, right? And so, I certainly wish the mayor was here tonight, but, we can't solve that side of the problem. But what we can do is, at the very least, try to shed more light on it and bring our own opinions to it, and hopefully generate a conversation around the prioritization, and hopefully in the next fiscal cycle, we can see more prioritization of some of these projects.
Can I add something to that?
Sure, Councilor Gunn.
Because many of us have been on the council for the last 8 years, where when the time bond report was first presented, and I remember John Eric speaking to us, one of the things we heard is we need prioritization. So it's absolutely true, all the funding and what the priorities are at the time. And I feel like actually 2 years after hearing this report, we did approve a $2 million bond to dedicate towards streets and sidewalks. Because, we try to see what we can do, what we could work on, small amount that we could dedicate to kind of meet what we are knowing as the competing interests of the city. But I do know, and we could go back and hear, there has been from the department, we need help prioritizing. We need someone who's an expert to look at this. And I know Director Amaral, the first thing he did when he came was come before us to approve expenditures towards doing some type of a prioritization plan. So I think all of this, while it's been kind of a slow pace, not a high level of prioritization, I think part of it is you can't do anything until you have a plan. We're kind of like, when do you start planning for it? And all that takes time. And I feel like we are a little bit, I'm not going to say we're behind. I mean, I think look at the reports that are done. If we go to the city's website, now we're getting some phase 1, phase 2, now some actual numbers. It is happening and coming along. And I think this ad hoc, what we're hoping is our CIP discussion and prioritization was very helpful. And I thank the administration for going through that exercise of creating, well, here's how we now prioritize CIP. It was the first time we saw a different look to the CIP. But that different look, I think, elevated a lot of this that maybe before was kind of caught up in departmental projects. So I do think all around we're getting somewhere, and this ad hoc formation is really gonna even take it further with that kind of education to the public as well as us. And I think something positive can come from it.
Yeah, you actually just said something that I really meant to say at the beginning, and I'm so glad you triggered my memory on it. So as a part of this ad hoc, we are, and when I say we, it's really not me or anybody on the council. I think you're really doing it mostly, Kim, right? The project page. But so the administration is developing a project page, much like you would see the project page for the rec center at 59 Low Street. There will be a project page where we are going to have, we'll put tonight's presentation. It will also be a part of the event, the page on the website for the event tonight. But the various presentations that are important that have been done over the years as it pertains to the water projects, the major reports that have been done, the time bond report, the PAR report, the various reports that have been done along the way. The residents of Newburyport paid for these reports, and you should have access to all of them. I will warn you, there is a great deal of information in them. The presentations hopefully will be a good resource to be able to summarize some of the various points of information that have happened over the years. But there will be a projects page, and I really appreciate the help from the administration that will house all of this various information so that people can reference back to that. So, Owen Smith.
One question, and if it's yes, I'll follow up. I heard a rumor that the city's considering using RO as a form of filtration in a plant upgrade, is that true?
So the question is the city considering a reverse osmosis water treatment facility when we were to build a new facility? I'll let you take that.
It has been thrown around as an idea. It is not currently being considered as the top, choice.
Okay. Yeah, I just had concerns, one about cost, comparability with other
That's,
suppliers, and third, what you're gonna do with all that backwash.
Maybe if you could just very briefly give us pros and cons.
okay.
You can tell us what reverse osmosis is.
Yeah, there you go.
So reverse osmosis is the ability, basically you have membrane filters or very small porous filters that you take high pressure and you push the water through it to remove all of the impurities. With that you get discharge or waste that is very high in salinity, difficult to get rid of. The energy cost that is needed to operate one of those plants is extremely high. You're probably most likely the RO plant would be in the vicinity of $110 million. So it'd be double the amount of the other plant. It is a proven treatment technology. There are not very many of them run in the country. Your traditional would be your granular activated carbon filters, which is a coal which absorbs things, which we don't currently have at the water treatment plant. So that would absorb your PFAS, it would absorb your toxins, which is what the proposed addition would have in it, versus the anthracite coal that we currently have.
Yeah, no, I just would say like the GAC filtration, I grew up on Long Island,
Yep.
that was like a plug and play system that you would put on the wells there.
So- So his question was about a DAF system. So the current upgrade does not include a DAF system. It does not include any upgrade to our sedimentation or flocculation process to the treatment plant.
The one thing I will just add to that is, I might have said this earlier, I can't remember, but if we were to move to an RO plant, a reverse osmosis plant, we could potentially be taking the water from the Merrimack, which loses all of the necessity for the Indian Hill project and frankly the reservoirs and all the concern around the reservoirs, right? But there certainly are downsides. It's at least twice the amount of money to build these plants. They are very energy intensive. We would, I think, have to, at the very least, change the power lines that are coming into the site, which would obviously have disruptions of its own, and then all of the waste that comes from it as well. So that's what I've learned in the last 2 weeks
I'll
about
push
reverse
back a little more. I
osmosis.
mean, the best water supply is one you have direct control over, and we can control the Indian Hill, and we can't control the Merrimack.
I would agree.
Do you want to see if anyone online has questions?
Yeah, I did look earlier, but why don't we go, I'll go with Rainy Yang first, please.
My question is, what is the estimated cost if this infrastructure happens to fail, like later in the future?
Which, the question is, what's the estimated cost if the infrastructure were to fail? Which piece of infrastructure?
Tell me about all three, and then all together.
The which one?
Like the water treatment facility, the water quality, and then both together. Like, right, to like have an emergency situation, like if it fails because we didn't plan for it or we didn't do something, what does that look like?
Basically the worst case scenario would be you'd end up with a do not drink order. And I'm just not trying to scare anyone, that would be the worst case scenario.
Understand, yeah.
Um,
And then how long would it take to get that fixed, like an emergency situation?
It would depend on which part of the process were to fail.
Like just, I'm not a water person, like are we looking at like days, weeks, months?
It would most likely be probably weeks. But if it were to be one of the pumps from the Artichoke pump station, which is called a high lift pump in our field, you're looking at 6 months to a year to replace that.
Maybe a good question to interject here is how long can we survive in the water that's in the towers?
During the winter time, roughly 24 to 36 hours. During the summertime, about 12 hours.
For the whole town,
Yes.
the whole city.
Yes, the whole city. For the microphone. I just want to say, if anyone is online and wants to ask a question, please do raise your hand. We are paying attention there as well. Lauren Cameron.
Is there any risk that the water would have to be shut off to the town, or is it just that we would have a do not drink order?
So currently, there's no risk.
The question was, would there ever be a risk to shut the water off to the town entirely versus having a do not drink order?
The only way that you would have total failure and the inability to produce water to the city is if we were to lose one of our pumps. You know, currently we have 2 pumps over at the Artichoke pump station. One has currently failed. That's why it's on the CIP, and it's more of a maintenance issue for us. They are 20-year-old. It is a 20-year-old piece of infrastructure, so that is going to be replaced. As long as we can pump water to the treatment plant, and we can pump water from our clear well, we can produce water to the city for fire protection. There could possibly be a do not drink order with that, but we are not anywhere near that point.
And if the dam in the lower Artichoke is compromised, would you still be able to take water out of the lower Artichoke to do the water treatment plant?
The question is, if the lower Artichoke Dam were compromised, could we still pump water to the water treatment facility and provide water to the city?
So if the first phase of Indian Hill was done, then we would be able to pull water through that pipe. If it is not done, then we'd have to run temporary water main up to the upper, and we do have another point to be able to get water into the station.
And how
But it
long
would
would
be-
it take to do that?
Probably a couple days.
Mr. Owen Smith.
Yeah, just a follow-up with redundancy. We have the 2 wells. Can you keep, spike, production on those to offset any loss from the reservoir to buy some time?
With the 2 wells, can we offset the lack of water from the treatment plant? We can pump roughly 500,000 gallons of water out of those 2, so that would be some supply. Well 1, if we were to lose the inability to bring water into the treatment plant, the well 1 cannot produce enough water to drive our finished water pumps there. So we'd only have well 2, and that would be roughly 400 gallons a minute. Our treatment plant runs at 700 gallons a minute at its minimum.
Mary Delat.
Question about, if I understand correctly, the costs of this work would be paid through water and sewer rates. Is that correct, or is there another mechanism for that? And also, if it is water and sewer rates, as you are all doing your work and you come up with a schedule of projects, will you do a water rate study that will show what the impact on our rates would be?
So the question is, how are these projects funded? Do they come through water sewer rates? And so, the answer is yes. So there are enterprise funds for water, and there is an enterprise fund for water, sewer, and harbor master. Harbor master's off to the side, right? We're only talking about water projects tonight. And so the cost of these projects would not come through your property tax bill, what we think is our tax bill. It would come through your water sewer rates, and so your water bill that you get, and your sewer bill is basically based on your water bill, because the amount of water that goes into your house has to go back out of your house. So we don't measure sewer, it's all based on how much water comes into the house. So yes, the entirety of these projects would come through the Water Enterprise Fund. Having said that, the administration is very actively seeking grants to cover a lot of these projects. I think it is reasonable that we could expect some really decent amount of grants to cover some of these, but certainly not all of it. I asked this question in a meeting at one time, and, I think the answer was about 25% of it is a reasonable estimate that we could expect grants for. So we as taxpayers would be responsible for about 75%. If somebody has a better number than that, but, I will make it a point to bring that up, in one of our meetings so that we can get the administration to, react to that as well. But I see Kim Turner has her hand up, so.
Yeah, so, it's pretty clear, thank you for the presentation, that we're at 30% design on the Indian Hill
Yes.
project, which has been in the works for the last couple of years. So we have been actively working towards designing at least to 30% that project. To get from 30 to 100%, what's the ballpark on timing for design and permitting?
The question is, what's the timeline to get from 30% design on the Indian Hill project, which is where we are today, to 100% design?
I can answer that. So I put together the RFP and the scope for that project. And that's what AECOM signed up for, and that's what they executed. Since they broke it up, if you're asking for going from phase 1, 30% to final, that's one question. If you talk about the entire Indian Hill from 30 to 100, you talk about phase 1?
Let's do both. So finish phase 1 and then move us towards phase 2.
So phase 1 is the conceptual design is not done because the comments haven't been resolved. So I don't have an answer on how those comments will be resolved because the Water Commission has their opinion as well as other people. So personally, and I'm only one person, and I need to make that clear, when I give comments from me, my position and myself, that's part of the information. So I do not feel, and neither does Ty and Bond, agree with phase 1. In the CIP, there was a sentence that said, Ty and Bond approve phase 1. They did not. And they don't like the fact that that's in there because it's a credibility issue. So we really need to remove that. But I think we need to resolve phase 1, whether or not we should go with it before we go into final design.
Mr. Smith?
I have one last question, I promise. So, I'm a little confused by the end product of this ad hoc, which is, we're talking about water enterprise money. What's stopping us right now from doing the first priority on the list and getting it going? Why does it really matter compared with the general fund backed projects when we already have some debt runoff on the water enterprise fund? We can actually start working toward an immediate need right now.
Yeah, we do have a number of these projects, most notably, and I think potentially the thing that's most at risk are the pumps at the lower artichoke, right? We've already heard tonight that one of them is no longer functional. We have one and if it stops working, we're not gonna have any water, right? So that is actually funded in this fiscal year. So that is something that is intended to get started this fiscal year. And then what is the other one? One of the other big ones is some money being spent this year. Oh, the water meter replacement program is also moving forward this year, right? So those two projects are currently funded and will happen this particular year.
Plus the chlorine boosters.
Oh,
and the advanced
very good answer.
phase 1. So there's actually 4 projects that are already being funded that are progressing this year.
So
Great.
one thing I would add with the artichoke pump station is we just reviewed the 90% design. I am pushing to get that resolved within the next month, so hopefully to 100%, and then we can move it forward to the Water and Sewer Board and then to the council.
I'm sorry, what project was that?
The artichoke pump station
Okay.
rehab.
Yeah.
And if I could piggyback with what Kim said, the lower artichoke dam improvements, that did not make the list because it's under conceptual design, and that was funded by a previous fiscal year. So right now, it's not technically on the funding list, but that's fine. Doesn't need to be because we're only in the concept design, and that was already paid for.
Any others? Mr. Jones?
Angus Jennings, Town Manager, West Newbury. I want to thank you for hosting this and for including myself. I believe we have a couple of other West Newbury officials who've been listening in. I'm not sure if there might be here in the room, but just speaking for myself, I think it's great that you are getting, organized around this. And I mean, that sounds terrible. I know you're, but I think it's great the council's getting involved because the town of West Newbury, I've been there a little over 7 years. It's taken some time to get the town of West Newbury organized, but I think we've been organized for a number of years, and we are ready as a community to engage in this. Councilor Preston, you said earlier in the meeting that at least some of what's outlined would either require or certainly benefit from collaboration with the town of West Newbury. There are certain things like bylaws, regulatory, that absolutely would require the town of West Newbury to take actions. Others that I think the town could be either helpful or not helpful, and there's a lot of detail to be worked through. So I just wanted to give just very briefly a couple of kind of high-level points. One is, I know you all are aware of this, but others in the room may not be. The city and the town did have an intermunicipal agreement in 1980 that essentially governed the purchase of water and other aspects of the relationship. As a matter of law, that did expire in 2005. Intermunicipal agreements cannot exceed 25 years under Mass General Law. So in the time I've been with the town, this has been a major interest of the town. The city has honored the volumes and so forth, but legally it is an exposure for the town. So it is something that we have something to gain to reestablish a formal relationship. I think there's things the city has to gain or to lose in that negotiation and vice versa. Anytime you have two parties with something to win and something to lose, you have a basis for a negotiation. So I think that's positive on balance. A couple of other brief points. West Newbury, like every city in town, is a multifaceted organization. So while I report directly to the select board, the chief elected body, we also have an elected board of water commissioners. They have significant independent authority. When I said a moment ago that we've been working to get organized, really we put in a lot of effort to get the select board and the water commission organized around what their shared priorities are, specifically with regard to the relationship with the city of Newburyport on water. So we have a list we put together a couple of years ago of kind of things we would definitely want to have, things we'd like to have, other things we wouldn't like to have, and so forth. So there's a basis there for a process, but I just want to be clear that's not something that can go through a centralized, one office. It's West Newbury has multiple kind of power centers, if you will, and ultimately some of these items, anything regulatory, would require town meeting. Some of these other actions would require town meeting votes, open town meeting, so that's every registered voter. And then finally, I just want to, we did reach out to the city formally a couple of years ago, urging through the administration that a interdisciplinary working group be established by the city. It's not our knowledge nor frankly our job to figure out for the city of Newburyport who has to be at the table. But we did engage special counsel for the town of West Newbury to figure out legally and definitively who would need to be at the table for an IMA. The short version of that is the select board and the water commission. That's going to depend on what it covers, but for the things that we expect would be material aspects of that, we think both of those boards would need to be signatories. In terms of the city side, we would be guessing whether between the administration, the council, the water and sewer commission. That's not our issue to resolve. That's really the city's issue. And so we had reached out and suggested, and we basically said we are open to meetings. We would really encourage, we'd like to get to the table and have serious conversations, but we want to do that with people on the city's behalf who have the standing to have those conversations. It's a lot of time and work, and we work, as I know you all do, really hard. We work long hours. There's not time to waste. So we would very much like to engage in a series of meetings with the key working group or whomever, but that really is something that the city, I guess I'm going to continue to come to these meetings. I think you'll probably see other attendance from West Newbury residents and officials, but definitely we would like to get on a path to a serious discussion about an IMA and what both municipalities ideally could gain from that. I think there are things that could be gained.
Yeah, that's really great, and actually something really great to close on, but I am, just for the sake of maybe people haven't heard online, I'm gonna try to summarize that as well. But I think hopefully people have appreciated from the slides the fact that the reservoirs are actually, the majority of them are in West Newbury, not in Newburyport, while the intake is on this side. So, you know, a lot of the work that needs to be done around both the lower and upper artichoke reservoirs, certainly, and the entirety of Indian Hill sits within inside West Newbury. Well, the city of Newburyport owns it. It sits in West Newbury. So any pipe that gets from there to the city of Newburyport would have to be laid in West Newbury property, right? So one of the things that I wanted to make sure we really hit hard tonight is the fact that we do have an IMA that was last signed in 1980 and became no longer legal in 2005. So the IMA, the intermunicipal agreement, IMA, which is the agreement between the two cities, the city and the town, that because we do, some of West Newbury does actually use water from the Newbury system, or the Newburyport system. Boy, there's too many Newburys in there. You know, so there are many reasons that we need an intermunicipal agreement with West Newbury, both from the water that they take from us, but also all the work that we're doing on their land. And so it's something that we really need to focus on. And Mr. Jennings is so right in pointing out that because they are a town and have a different form of government, they cannot be as nimble as we can. They have to go to town board and essentially have what we would consider a referendum or a vote of everybody to really do some of these sorts of things. And so while we may be able to send somebody to the table tomorrow, hash out a deal and, you know, sign a piece of paper, which frankly, we have not been doing. West Newbury has been much more proactive about it than the city of Newburyport. But even if we started doing that today, West Newbury has a different system that will take more time and has some more cumbersome aspects of it than the city of Newburyport does. So it is something that the council cannot do. It can only come from the administration, but it is something that the administration really has to focus on. And our ability, even if we come up with all the prioritization and had all the money in the world, our ability to do some of these projects really lies with West Newbury as well. And so that cannot be lost in this process. Okay? All right, well, we are out of time. I really appreciate everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate presenters. They have put a lot of work into putting these slides together. We do have a number of more meetings. I hope that everybody will pay attention to them. I think I wrote them down. Did I? Constance, come on. We do have a number of meetings. I will say the next meeting is coming Wednesday at 1:30. Is it at City Hall? Is that the one? Yes, it is at City Hall. But check the meeting, the website, the city website, and to find out about all of the meetings. But the cadence for these particular meetings are every other Wednesday afternoon. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, everybody.